Proposition in Arizona is the voters' opportunity to amend the Constitution of the state of Arizona.
Okay, ballot propositions are those propositions that either the people initiate, in which they're proposing some sort of amendment to the Constitution, or they are a referendum by a legislature. The legislature has proposed a law or proposed an amendment to the Constitution, and they're referring it back to the people. So if we're talking about Arizona, because our federal government doesn't have ballot propositions, only states do. In Arizona, the propositions are either initiative or referendum. Initiative is when the people initiate it, and they write out the proposed law or proposed amendment, and you vote on it. And it takes, I think, 3/4 of, I'm not sure about this, takes 2/3 of the people's vote to pass an initiative. Same for referendum, that when the legislature refers it back to the people. Yeah, I'm trying to remember how this goes. I'm thinking that it's actually the majority. It's not if it's not a 2/3 or 3/4. It's if the people agreed for initiative or agree to a referendum, whatever the majority is, that's the winner, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so like right now, there's a referendum in which the state legislature is wanting the people to decide whether it's okay to have an amendment to the Constitution that's going to change where they get money, some of the money for education right now. That's your Prop 123.
They are a good example of the will of the majority, and in a democracy it is the will of the majority that sets the rules. I think sometimes they're used by our legislature to bypass their own responsibility as elected officials and sort of passing the buck, if you will. I vote on every ballot prop.
I have, every time there is an election, or almost every time, there's either a proposition or a referendum. And so depending on the issue, I've voted yes or no. And sometimes the propositions are written in a weird way, so that if you vote no, you're really voting for it. It's just kind of a weird thing. And sometimes there'll be there'll be different ways, different propositions that say kind of the same thing, and you have to be careful because they're slightly different. For instance, the year that Arizona, I think, was the last state to have a Martin Luther holiday for its state employees. Well, that year we had a referendum and initiative that did the same thing. Okay, it was referred back to the people, do we want to have a holiday? And then there was an initiative that said, yes, we have a holiday, or no, we don't have a holiday. The people initiated. Well, what would happen if one had a no vote and the other one had a yes vote? Do you understand where the confusion could be?
Yeah.
So who's right? Well, then you'd have to have the courts make that decision, and I think they'd have to start all over.
Yes.
I would say that I am familiar with both of them.
Okay. Did you support either one of their methods?
I am in support of a sales tax that would, and that proposition was several years ago. I think that we need to raise our tax dollars in Arizona for education. And I think it needs to be continued. But this year it's going to end. And so I voted for that the first time, and so I'm in support of that. As to the other, I do not think the answer to our education finance problem is going to be settled by that proposition. That will give more money to the teachers right now, which is great, but in 10 years, what happens? So that's my question, and I'm having some difficulty with that. I'm not sure that I trust that anything will be done about financing education long-term. This is a short-term solution. It's kind of like putting, you have a headache because you drink too much, so you take some medication to take away that headache, but the real problem is the drinking. You're not fixing the drinking problem. Does that make more sense to you there? That's how I see this proposition. It's just a aspirin to the bigger problem.
I would rather the legislature and the people of this state support education more and not have to do it through these propositions. I don't think they're ineffective. I think that there are better ways to do it. One of the reasons that we elect a legislature is to make decisions for us. That's what a representative democracy is, a republic. And when the elected officials fail to make decisions, then it's left up to these propositions and it's left up to the voters. Well, Proposition 301, as the courts have ruled, the people voted in favor of giving teachers more money, giving school districts more money. The legislature, as the courts have decided, have not followed what the proposition said. So in our system, the courts have ordered the state to spend more money on education. The state has not done so. And that's what, once again, the courts have ruled that. That's basically breaking apart our system of separation of powers and checks and balances. The judicial branch has instructed the executive and the legislative branches to do something, and they have chosen not to do it, and thus we're back giving the people a vote on Proposition 123 for something that the courts have said should have been answered was Proposition 301.
Well, I think that in the state of Arizona, that propositions, mostly initiative propositions, are maybe the best way to get money for schools, because we have a very conservative legislature that is not focused on education. They're more focused on charter school education. And so over the last too many years to count, education has lost money. They definitely have lost money in the last 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, and there's no fix. So we might as well have the people initiate a proposition that will solve a problem long term. We just haven't seen it yet. I think it's very effective, and I think it's effective because it allows the people to have some kind of say in government. The United States is not a true democracy. We're what we call a republic or a representative democracy. And in that representative democracy, we choose leaders to make decisions for us. We're choosing representatives. But with a referendum or initiative, then you and I have a little bit of say. We can propose a law, we can propose an amendment, or it can be referred back to us. And so we have a little bit of a say on that. So I like that idea that if something's important enough to me, I can do something about it, other than make a phone call, write a letter, sign a petition. I can do more. I can initiate something. I can